It's Thursday, 11 o'clock. Whoa, and it's time for this week's Watch Rob. The theme for this week is springtime wedding watches. Why am I going to look at these? Well, it's got nothing to do with the fact that I've got a wedding to go to in Italy in a couple of months and that I've been thinking about this non-stop. But I do think there is a subgenre of watches that you can wear in a sort of smart environment where perhaps you're outside in the sunshine. You want it to be discreet. You want to make a statement, something that's fitting for that moment where you're in the wedding photos. You've got this absolutely perfect dress watch that stands out. Something that slides under the cuff perfectly and matches that linen suit just perfectly. So let's jump into it and cover off a few that we've got on the table this week. I think there's something in there, certainly for me, but hopefully for you too. The first brand that comes to mind when I think of this type of watch is absolutely Piaget. Now, on the table, we've got a watch that we've seen before, but I want to talk about it again because it's so special. This is a reference 9297, a yellow gold, full yellow gold, of course, 18 karat, 24 millimeter tank case, a rectangular case. But the standout with this watch is the Jade dial. It's phenomenal. That's the word to use, I think. The way that you have that perfect contrast between yellow gold and green in the dial. Of course, Piaget use only the finest stones. And this one is flawless, it's beautiful, it's deep, it's interesting. And then you've got that beautiful yellow gold stamped dial on top. For me, if I was wearing a light linen suit, this would be the one to go for because you've got that sort of contrasting colour that just pops nicely against a lighter coloured suit. In the sunshine, these dials come to life. Piaget back in the day chose just the very best stones, and they have this duality where indoors they're fairly dark and subdued, but outside they come alive. And I can see myself wearing this on the Amalfi Coast and spending most of the day just looking at the watch rather than the wedding itself. It's a really special thing. Now, it would be remiss of me to cover off this genre or subgenre of watches without talking about some pieces from Cartier. And we're fortunate that this week there are two really lovely examples. One that we've covered off before, so I'll cover it off fairly briefly. But the Tonneau Centre is a very special watch. It's classically Cartier, yellow gold with a guilloché off-white dial and blued hands. But the really interesting part of this watch is the shape. There aren't any other manufacturers who will be able to create something this tactile, this sort of, I guess, artistic. It's kind of just characterful. It's curved in 3 dimensions. So on plan, you're looking at it and it's a shapely watch, but it's not feminine. On wrist, it's curved around your wrist. So it creates this really convex sort of shape, just hugs your wrist and just feels perfect. I don't know why other watches aren't curved, frankly. When you put this on, it just makes so much sense. And then you have the sapphire itself, which is curved in 2 different dimensions, which creates this beautiful, interesting, almost pebble-like shape. I think this has got to be up there on the list of summertime dress watches. Wedding or no wedding, this is something that I think you could wear with shorts and t-shirts, or more smarter attire as well. It's a beautiful and timeless design, and yeah, absolutely one on my list for sure. Moving on, I'm going to talk about a more modern Cartier, and one that's absolutely caught my attention. This is a Tank Américaine Art Deco from last year's Novelties. Now, this is something that if you were to go to a smart wedding. Going back to that Amalfi Coast scenario, I think this is something that you could wear really, really well in a sort of black tie evening event, but with a different strap, something a bit lighter, a little bit fresher. I think it'd work just as well in the daytime outside, soaking up some sun rays. I really love it. Of course, the design of the dial is the big feature here. It's an automatic movement, which is great. It's really useful if you're wearing it throughout the course of the week. You don't have to worry about winding it all the time. But the dial is so interesting, so deco. The greys and the blacks and the golds work perfectly. So again, a timeless design from Cartier, a subtle curvature to the case because it's not a Centre. It is an Américaine, but you have this big slab of gold that makes it feel like a really special, precious metal watch. Lovely thing, sapphire cabochon. What more do you need? The last gold watch that I'm going to talk about today is this really interesting Franck Muller reference 2860. It's a dual register chronograph executed in rose gold with a salmon sector dial. There's an array of different finishes there. It's an enamel dial, which is really interesting in itself. But you've got a guilloché finish in salmon. You've got a sort of pearlescent white sector components to the dial with Roman numeral indices and just beautiful blued hands that capture the light and sparkle, offset perfectly against that rose gold. What I love about this watch is that despite the diminutive proportions, it's only 32 millimeters in diameter. If you turn it over, I think the size of the caliber that they've included is probably 30 millimeters. It's basically all of the case is taken up by this magnificent manual wind caliber. It's a real watch, this thing, and don't be put off by the size. I think because of these pump pushers that protrude quite far from the case, it wears like a bigger item, something that's just bigger on the wrist. And for me, someone that likes sort of 36 millimeters and below, particularly in dress watches, this works brilliantly well on my 18 centimeter wrist. It's a lovely thing. And for me, the star of the show is the caliber. It's huge and it's wonderful and it's interesting and it's a real value proposition, frankly. So definitely worth a look if you're looking for something that's complicated but still very dressy. I'm going to move on to two stainless steel options. And don't be put off by the fact that this watch is executed in stainless steel, because to many, Lang Heyne is one of the greatest watch manufacturers from a finishing perspective. Let me talk to you about why this watch is quite so special. So Lang Heyne is something that sounds a little bit like Lang & Söhne, and actually Dresden isn't too far away from Glashütte, both in Germany, both right in the same field of watchmaking, very high-end, typically dress watches. This one is the Friedrich II, named after a monarch, I think, in Germany. And it's a fairly ordinary looking watch. As I say, it's stainless steel, it's not a precious metal. The dial itself is executed in stainless steel with this brilliant white with these lovely little red accents around the indices. But where this watch shines is as you dive deeper into it, the finishing is unparalleled. It really, really is. Let's move past the dial. The hands, I think, are worth talking about, but I won't go into them too much. They are just beautifully finished from every single angle. But turn the watch over and you are greeted by one of the nicest looking movements I've seen in a very long time. Remembering that this is a time-only watch, so this isn't a particularly complicated caliber, but it's executed to perfection. I could bore you about all the different finishing types. I particularly like the solarized wheels that sort of draw you in like a sort of whirlpool. But I really like the hand-engraved scripture that's on the watch, on the caliber, that just makes you want to read it. It just feels old-fashioned and artisanal. I love it. But the standout point to me, I think, and I think the definition of stealth wealth, is this lovely, lovely, brilliant cut diamond that you find at the center of the balance wheel. We're used to seeing engraved balance cocks from Lang & Söhne. There, obviously, that's one of the standout components for Lang & Söhne, but this one is executed similarly well, but just to make it slightly different and slightly more, I guess, luxurious, you have this beautiful diamond. It's an amazing thing. And the first time you look at this watch, you don't see it. But then when it catches the light, it's just cool. It's like Patek stretch watches in platinum with their little brilliant cut diamond at the 6 o'clock position. It's like that, but arguably slightly cooler. Oh, I love this thing. And it's white dial with stainless steel, so you can put it on any kind of strap. It's really versatile, but it's a very, very special watch, and one that you could really wear every day, not just for those special occasions like an Italian wedding. So yeah, really, really cool thing. I'm going to finish today talking about one of my favorite value propositions. This is a JLC Master Control sector dial. When I think of this watch, I remember when it first came out, I think it was 2019, something like that. And I remember an article produced by Stephen Pulvirent when he was at Hodinkee. And he talked about how special this watch is and how much of a sort of strap monster it really is. At the moment, we've got it on this, I think it's black, possibly very dark blue strap. But when you put this watch onto something like a beige strap or a taupe strap, I think Stephen put it on a taupe strap at the time, it transforms this watch into something that's so fresh and interesting. The dial is very similar to a Patek sector dial. There's a reference 5296 that has almost exactly the same finish to it. So it looks like a much more expensive watch than it really is. But you have a difference in finishing. You've got the blues and the silvers and the whites, all really sort of, I guess, preppy colours. But you've got syringed blued hands, which I think are really interesting. You really get to enjoy that dial through the hands. And it's got a really interesting date window. I say it's interesting because it's got that sort of pop of like vibrant blue on the font. I really like it. It's a watch that really comes together. The caliber itself is open. You get to see that skeletonized rose gold rotor spinning around. And the watch wears so well because it's really an ultra thin watch. They don't call it that, but it is. It's 6 millimeters thick or something like that. It's a great thing and very, very versatile. So if your budget's around £5,000 or something like that, I really do think you could go much further wrong than this example. I love this thing. I really do. And do check out that article on Hodinkee. It's really interesting. It will persuade you, probably better than I just have, that this is a good watch for that occasion. So that's this week's drop. Over 65 watches hitting this site, and definitely something there for that Italian wedding on the Amalfi Coast. I wonder who's going to pick up this amazing Piaget, possibly me. But also, if these ones that I've talked about today aren't your cup of tea, then maybe the Laurent Ferrier Classic Origin, which is a titanium dress watch, super comfortable thing. I love that. Or even the Celebration dial from Rolex, the now discontinued Oyster Perpetual. That's a very, very fun watch. So head over to subdial.com, check out this week's drop. Some really, really cool stuff, and I'll see you next week. Hang on, sorry, I've just realised I've got chocolate on my finger. Sorry.